Okay, we're looking at Hebrews chapter 12, and I'd like to ask for a volunteer to read through the first 3 verses of Hebrews 12. Who would like to read for us?
Hebrews 12, 1-3. Okay. Therefore, since we have so great a cloud of witnesses surrounding us, let us also lay aside every encumbrance and the sin which so easily entangles us, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of faith, who for the joy set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and has sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. For consider him who has endured such hostility by sinners against himself, so that you may not grow weary and lose heart.
Okay, so what I want you to see is there's a command in this passage, but there's also a reason for the command. So before we look at what it is that God's commanding us to do, we need to look at the reason. And does anybody see what the reason is that affects the command that we're told? Who would like to share what is the reason? It's right in the beginning of the passage.
Since we have a great cloud of witnesses.
Yeah. So what is the great cloud of witnesses that it's talking about?
All the saints of chapter 11.
Right. So
faithful people.
Let's talk first. What is a witness?
Someone who sees something. Someone
Not just sees it. You can have someone sees something, but they're not necessarily a witness to it. What do you have to have?
They testify about it.
They see something or experience something, and then they testify according to it. Okay? But this word in the Greek is very interesting because from it we get the word martyr and martyreo. So this kind of witnessing can be something that a person does to the point of death. So they're willing to witness about something, even if they're going to lose their lives. So I think this is a very important thing to keep in mind, that the cloud of witnesses, what happened to half of the witnesses in the last part of chapter 11? It's not pretty. Makes the Batwoman episode that I'm looking at look.
They were killed.
Yeah, they were sawn in two with a saw, chainsaw massacre. You know, that's not pleasant, people. Okay, what else?
Oh, mocking and flogging.
They were mocked, and what else?
Chains and imprisonment.
Yes, they were in prison, and what else? How did they die? It lists some of the ways that some of them died.
Hey, stoned.
Yeah, they were stoned.
Hey.
Yeah. So what I want to point out to everyone is that these witnesses, some of them paid for it with their lives in order to be a witness. So these people are called a what of witnesses? There's a word used to describe the group of them. What's the word? A what of witnesses? Therefore, since we have such a great what of witnesses?
Sacrificing their lives. Her life.
Well, that's true. They did sacrifice their lives, but they are described as a group of people by a certain word. It doesn't say, therefore, since we have such a great group of witnesses. It says, therefore, since we have such a great what of witnesses. What's the word that we're missing here? Come on, guys, look at your Bibles. This is
Cloud.
observational.
It's a cloud.
A cloud of witnesses. I don't know about you, but I have not seen people in the clouds recently. Okay? Now, I've seen clouds that look like animals. I've seen clouds that look like Mickey Mouse. I've seen clouds that look like horses. I got a great Bali picture of clouds. It looks like 3 horses. Okay, someday I'll show it to you guys. But I have never in my entire life seen people standing in the clouds. So why on earth did the writer to Hebrews describe the witnesses as a cloud of witnesses when he talks about the group of everybody that he's talking about from chapter 11, all the people that he mentions in chapter 11? Why does he describe them as a cloud of witnesses? Think about it. You guys read this passage way too quickly and didn't think deeply enough about it. Why did he describe them as a cloud of witnesses?
Well, I guess they're spirits, right? I mean,
That's the first reason. Amen. Okay. Good.
and maybe they can float like a cloud together.
Okay. What verb does he talk about the cloud does? The cloud does something. What does it do? What's the verb? Therefore, since we have such a great cloud of witnesses, what? What's the verb? What's the operative verb?
Surrounding.
Surrounding.
Yes.
Now that's something we can relate to. I've been in a cloud on top of a mountain and the clouds surrounded me.
Protect believers.
Yes, it's talking about the Christians and the Old Testament believers that died before us, who are spirits surrounding us like a cloud right now, looking at you, watching you, cheering you on in the race. And this is the reason why it is that we're told to do what it is we're told to do in these verses. Okay? So what are we told to do? We'll come back to the cloud in a minute, but what are we told to do?
Lay aside every weight and sin.
Okay? And do what? So that's the first part of it. We need to lay aside every weight and sin for the purpose of doing something.
Run with endurance the race that is set before us.
Okay. What's the race? What on earth are we talking about? The Olympics just finished. The races are
Christian
over.
life. The Christian life is the race.
Okay. But it's a race to what and for what? What's it a race to?
We have to do it looking to Jesus.
The race was for forgiveness, the humanity sins. Guilty.
Well, these people already have forgiveness. It's not a race for forgiveness. It's a race for something else.
To become more like Jesus, to, be faithful till the end of life. And
Yes, it's a race to imitate Jesus and what he experienced in this world. And so what are we supposed to do in relationship to Jesus here? We're supposed to do something. Would anyone like to comment? What are we supposed to do? What's the verb used that we're supposed to do in relationship to Jesus? Look at these first 3 verses more carefully. What's the verb that we're supposed to do? There's a verb in verse 2 and there's a verb in verse 3. Do you know what a verb is, everybody? A verb is an action word, often reflected in the scriptures in terms of commands, something we're supposed to do. What's, okay, well, the first verb happens in verse 1. Let's talk about the verbs. What's the first verb? What's the first thing we're supposed to do? Okay, I mentioned it earlier. Lay aside the sin and everything that's holding us back, okay? And then what's the second verb that comes up in verse 1?
Run.
Run the race that's set before us, okay? What's the third verb that comes in verse 2?
Wow, look at
Fix your eyes.
Fixing your eyes on Jesus, okay? So we lay aside, we run, and when we run, we keep our eye on Jesus. Now, I grew up in Florida, and we had these greyhound races, and they would put blinders on the greyhound dogs, and then they would line up all the dogs and blow a whistle, and then there was this rabbit that was on the end of a
fake rabbit.
no, it was a real rabbit. They put it on the end of a pole, and then they did it really, really quickly, and then the greyhounds ran as quickly as they could, and then the greyhound that won, then if you bet on that one, you'd get all the money. Well, this is what we're talking about. Jesus is the bunny. We are the greyhounds, and we're supposed to lay aside everything, fixing our eyes on Jesus. That's saying, take blinders, put them on your eyes, and look ahead to Jesus. Jesus is your bunny, honey. Okay? Does everybody get this? And so you gotta look at it. It's like when we feed our monitor lizard, his name is Gator. We put the mousey in the tongs, and we hold it, and he fixes his eyes on it, and then he starts jumping, jump, run, until he gets the mousey, and he ain't looking at anything. He's except for the mousey. So the problem is in the race that we're in, we're like window shoppers in a mall. Okay, we're not looking where we're going. We're stopping and we're gaping along the way. Oh, isn't that pretty over there? Oh, I think I'd like to try that. Oh, that looks like it would be fun. And oh, look, I can stop and make a lot of money here. Oh, look, I can build my house. Oh, I can buy a car. Oh, I can run for president and fool all the people in the United States of America. And so the point is that people do all these things, and I'm not saying that running for president is wrong. I'm not saying that window shopping is wrong. I'm not saying that buying a house is wrong. What I'm saying is that people get distracted in the race so that they forget that they're in the race. They are no longer greyhounds chasing a bunny. Okay? They are no longer Christians chasing after their Savior. They become distracted shoppers in a mall. And that's what we're like, people. That's what we're like. We are distracted in this race that is set before us. We're not looking at Jesus. We're not thinking about the end of our days. We're not thinking about laying aside every sin. Heck, sin's fun. Let's indulge it. Let's eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die. Christians are partying, they're eating, they're getting super freaking fat. And that's what they're doing. And we're not pursuing Jesus by dropping off every possible sin that could be holding us back. So the picture that's given here, this athletic picture of running after Jesus, is a great picture. And it's something that all of us can relate to and should be able to relate to. But in order to do it, you gotta throw everything off. And this was written to people who understood that the Greek Olympic Games years ago were games where people even threw their clothes off in order to run the race as quickly as possible. And so just as the Greek men threw off the clothes so that they could run just a little bit faster, we're supposed to throw off the sin in our lives so we can run a little bit more holy and a little bit better to chase after Jesus, and along the way realize that it's going to be hard. Let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, fixing our eyes upon Jesus. So, not an easy race. And a lot of people, they get running and it's hard. Running a race is hard, super hard. A lot of people say, I'm tired of the race. Other people get distracted. And the race is hard because it's a race to Jesus, and Jesus endured the cross for us. So what we've got to see tonight, guys, is just that the Christian life is pictured in many different ways in the Bible, but one of them is this race. So tonight we're fixing on the idea of a race, where we're always looking to the end. We're always looking to the prize. We're looking to the bunny, and we are greyhounds. So the title of my next sermon will be Jesus is Your Bunny. And people will be like, what are you talking about, Pastor? What are you talking about, Pastor? But the truth is, Jesus is the one that we chase after. We really chase after him. But, I don't always chase after Jesus. I chase after other things. What about the rest of you? What are you chasing after besides Jesus? A few of you share and turn your microphones back on, or I'm going to turn them on and ask you directly. But some of you guys turn on your microphones and tell me, what are you chasing instead of Jesus in this world? Rather than Jesus and a cross, you are chasing what? Fill in the blank.
Satisfaction.
Okay. Satisfaction. That's one. What else are we chasing? Dead silence falls over the Bible study. What are you chasing, guys?
I think I chase a interesting life, because sometimes, I think it's humdrum. So I think I've got to do something more interesting.
Yeah. So we're
Things get
chasing
boring.
after.
Everyday stuff is too boring.
We're chasing after excitement.
Mhm.
We're chasing after an easy life. We're chasing after comfort. What else are we chasing after?
To be kind with others, to others.
Okay. What else are we chasing after? Things other than Jesus.
Now, for some people, it's about building their wealth and making more money. I mean, we all need to make money to live off of. But we know some people that are quite preoccupied with making more on the stock market and things like that.
Yeah, the problem is not making money. The problem is chasing money.
Mm-hmm.
That's the problem. Okay, what do you all think that Vladimir Putin is chasing right now?
Power.
Okay, some said power.
To
What else?
bless my life and my business.
Okay, and what else is Vladimir Putin in Russia chasing?
His pride.
Yes, he's chasing his legacy because he thinks that the Ukraine has historically always been a part of the Soviet Union, and therefore he wants to get it back under Russia. So we have two world leaders right now that are chasing after their legacy because of their pride. One of them is Vladimir Putin, and the other one is Xi Jinping in China. They're very similar. And Xi Jinping wants to get Taiwan back under China, and Putin wants to get the Ukraine back under Russia. And our president in the United States, Joe Biden, has to deal with this. He has to deal with two people with very big egos, trying to get something back that they're chasing because they want their legacy when they die to be the fact that they succeeded in doing these things. So my point is that our world, and in our world, people, whether they're small Christians, no Christians, or big world leaders or whatever, they're all chasing after something. And if it's not Jesus, it causes a lot of problems. I have a friend right now who's chasing after a lot of girls, and it's causing a lot of problems. And that friend is married, and it seems like, he's chasing after as many girls as he can possibly get. And it's not cool. And the only thing that delivers us from chasing the wrong thing is to chase Jesus. And until we realize that he's the prize, he's worth it, he's what we really want to see, and that's why we're running so fast. He's the one who's good enough, so we're willing to give up everything else. Until we see that, we're not going to give up the other things. So what we need to do is have a clear vision of Jesus. And if we have that clear vision of Jesus, that vision motivates us to get rid of everything else. But unfortunately, the world is way too tempting for us and for the world leaders. And so people chase other things. And then it makes things difficult for all the rest of us. So our world is in a mess because people are chasing something other than Jesus. Okay, that's verses 1-3. Let's go on. 4, 5, and 6. Who wants to read 4, 5, and 6?
In your struggle against sin, you have not yet resisted to the point of shedding your blood. And have you forgotten the exhortation that addresses you as sons? My son, do not regard lightly the discipline of the Lord, nor be weary when reproved by him. For the Lord disciplines the one he loves, and chastises every son whom he receives.
Okay, now let's go back to verse 4 and look at it carefully, okay? Everybody go back, look at verse 4, and read it silently to yourself. Wait a minute. Stop. I didn't consider verse 3 in any detail. I'm sorry. We need to go back one verse to verse 3, okay? We have another command for us to do in verse 3. And what are we supposed to do in verse 3? Let's go back to verse 3. This is all part of how we run the race. So what do we do in verse 3?
Yeah. Gotta consider Jesus, consider him.
And what does that mean? Consider Jesus.
Think about, meditate on how Jesus suffered persecution.
When we consider something, we often think about it deeply, but we often compare it to something else. When we consider something, like we consider, well, should I buy that or should I not buy that? Or we consider, is this a better thing to get than the other? Today, I was in the fish market in Xiaoliuqiu where I'm at, and they sell all different kinds of fish in the morning. And I love going out there because each morning it's different. And it's like you get to see what everybody caught the day before. Sometimes, one time I went there and somebody had caught a big redfish, and everybody was going, wow, that's the biggest redfish I ever saw. And then one day, some guy had caught 3 sharks. And so I actually bought one of the sharks that he caught. And then we had shark steak, not shark fin soup, but shark steak. And then one day it was lobster. One day it was eels. But today, when I went out there, it was mahi, which is one of my favorite kind of fish. And it was the biggest mahi I'd ever seen in my life. It was a huge, long fillet. And I asked the man, could I buy half of it? And he said, no, you got to buy the whole thing. And I didn't really care how much it was at that point because I had already committed myself, and it was too interesting as a cultural experience to give it up. So I bought a 3.5 pound fillet.
Yeah, it was 7 kilos.
Wait, did I do that wrong? It's 1.5 kilos. So
1.5 kilos. Okay.
so 1.5, that's 2.2 pounds plus 1.1. So
Yeah.
a 3.3 pound large steak of mahi mahi, and I bought it for $14 US, which and it's like got at least eight huge steaks on it, and I bought it for $14. So I was like so pleased with myself. But the funny thing about that was, and I think of this word consider, I considered which fish I was going to buy, and I had a choice. I could have bought these gnarly little mackerel that were full of bones that I bought yesterday because they didn't have any mahi, or I could buy this great, wonderful mahi steak, which I bought for $14. So I considered it, and then I made a choice based upon what was best. So when we consider something, we compare it, and then we make a choice as to what is best. So when the writer says, consider Jesus, he's saying compare him and following him to everything else in your life and realize this is better. And until you do that, you'll never see that he's better. You'll have to go through that process of consideration. Okay, so, but what we consider here is something very practical. We consider something that Jesus went through so that it will help us. So what do we consider about Jesus? Something specifically. For consider him who what?
Ah,
How Jesus endured hostility by sinners. He was persecuted, rejected, crucified by sinful people.
Yes. Okay. So we consider him who endured such hostility by sinners against himself. And this is important because we often think our lives are bad, our lives are worse. No one's gone through something as bad as we have. And basically, the writer of Hebrews is saying, wrong. There's somebody who's endured much, much, much more than you have. Okay. And then when we consider how bad it was for Jesus and how he yet endured, it gives us strength so that we don't grow weary and lose heart. And a lot of people who are running the Christian life and running the race, they give up because they get weary and they lose heart. And I know a lot of people who have gotten weary and have just given up, and we lose heart. So I think one of the biggest challenges we face as Christians is the challenge of handling our weariness. And the only way to do it is by looking at Jesus, because he's the only one who can give us strength to persevere when things are so blasted hard, we don't even know how we're going to get through it. So you only think in one of two ways when you encounter suffering. You either think, oh, woe is me, my situation is so bad, or you think, Jesus, how can you help me? Because you understand my pain. So you either go through your life and your struggles on your own, thinking that your situation is bad, maybe worse than everybody else's, or you look to Jesus realizing that his was worse, but yet he's there to help you. But there's only two choices. Woe is me, play the role of a victim, crawl up in a hole and say, I can't go on. Or you look to Jesus and say, give me strength. So I found as a pastor, as a counselor over the years, there's only two kinds of Christians. There are those who are very well practiced at the, oh, woe is me. Things are so hard, Pastor. Every time I hear that, I go, oh my God, I'm dealing with one of those again. And one of those are the people who never look to Jesus. You know, it's like, oh, you're going to tell me how bad it is, aren't you? Oh God. And then they start telling me how bad it is. And you're never once going to mention that Jesus is there to help you or you're looking to him. You're just going to tell me how hard it is to justify all of your bad reactions and why it is you can't really be like a Christian. I'm sorry. I'm way too honest. But, you know, the minute somebody opens their mouth and starts talking, I'm like, oh God, here we go again. You know, another person who has failed to look at Jesus, who's just looking at themselves and how bad it is. And you know what's funny about it is, compare the badness of what people are often complaining about with my friends in China, some of whom are in jail right now because of their faith. I have the blessing of knowing 4 of the 5 first generation of house church leaders in China, and each one of them spent 20 years in prison doing hard labor. And then Americans are complaining about, oh, I can't say Merry Christmas at my job. And I'm like, dear God, people, get alive, I'm sorry, but my point in all this is that we get way too discouraged way too easily, and way too easy to lose heart because we're looking at ourselves, and we're babies, and we're wimps, and we're complainers, and we're all those things. And this passage is a passage that helps babies, wimps, and complainers get out of it by looking at Jesus and realize he went through it all, and he gives me strength. So, big question for everybody to consider tonight. How do you handle it when your Christian life is tough? And life is tough. You're tempted to give up, throw it all away, say, this Christian life is too tough, too tough. I'm just going to go get drunk. Just going to go indulge my pain in some sinful way. So that's what this passage is designed to do, is to shake us up out of our victim mentality by getting us to look at Jesus. So, are you looking at Jesus, or are you looking at how hard it is? It's the only 2 choices.
The thing about the greyhounds is that they don't actually get to catch the rabbit. They're only teased by it. Whereas Jesus actually does promise stuff that we get to have.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like we're just running till we die. It's that he promises to give us rest. Come unto me, all you who are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. So it's not like we're running towards something we never get in this life.
I know, and I agree with you.
Although sometimes it seems like God's far away. I know that, it's for my own good, often.
Yeah. Sometimes it does seem like God is far away. Usually when we're hurting, we feel like God is far away, but that's the point where he comes to be with us.
Yeah, I forgot about the great cloud of witnesses. I have to be careful more.
Yeah,
It's not
seriously.
Like
there's a lot of people watching you.
Shoot. I'm not paranoid enough, huh?
Oh, we know what it's like to be watched, believe me. I think this is a very important truth. And I don't know, there's some verses in the Bible that really, really stick with me. And this one has always stuck with me in my Christian life. There's a few verses that have been very formative in my Christian life. And these 3 verses have really been helpful to me, because to picture a race, to picture dropping off all the sin, to picture keeping my eyes fixed on Jesus, realizing that he endured all these things, that's helped me a lot more than, some lecture on ancient Israel and Near Eastern suzerain treaties and all the stuff that you get in seminary, where you learn what that great Greek verb meant. So this passage has meant a lot to me because it's very practical. And often sermons are not practical. They can be inspirational and fluffy, and we're like, ooh, I feel good listening to that. But this is really practical. Will you look at Jesus? Will you drop your sin? Will you stop complaining and saying that you're so weak and you don't have strength? And will you look to the one who gives you strength in the race? That's the questions. Those are the questions. So are you doing it, people? Are you the people who come to endless Bible studies just wanting to know more, know more, know more, know more? Or are you the people who come to a Bible study who says, Lord, teach me, make me, break me, mold me, fill me, use me? Because it's not about information. It's about life. It's about living it. It's about loving people. It's about loving Jesus. It's about giving up everything for Jesus because he lost everything for us. It's about saying that that's good when I consider it. I didn't lose anything. I gained everything.
So did you eat all that mahi, or did you have to freeze some?
Oh, I got to tell you this. We have a friend who has an outdoor stand where he makes sandwiches for people. So I went up to him, and he actually lives in our building. He's in the next room. His name's Alan. So we went up to Alan and I said, hey, Alan, I'll give you half of my mahi steaks if you'll cook the other half and then make him as sandwiches for Evie me for lunch and for dinner. So Alan made these 2 sandwiches for us at lunch. And I tell you, it was the best mahi sandwich I've ever had in my life. And he's making our dinner and he's bringing it over at 9 o'clock after the Bible study. And then he's making us steaks with wine sauce. So we're going to get more mahi for dinner tonight, people. And I can't wait. I'll take a picture of it and send it to all of you. But yeah. He made our shark steaks when I got the shark too. I gave him the shark and I just wanted some of it and he took the rest of it. And he made the best shark. Oh, it was so good. He's a fabulous cook and he lives like 6 feet away from us. So we have a gourmet chef who lives right next to us. And yeah, it's rough living on the island. It's really rough, I must say. So hard.
Man.
Mhm.
See,
But
you
yeah.
get by sharing. You get something by sharing, which is beautiful.
Yeah, well, it's great to share. And the thing is, everybody on the island shares. Like people who get a lot of fish and there's no way they can eat it. They brought fish over to me so many times. During mango season, all my neighbors drop by. Hey, you want some mangoes? I'm like, yeah, mangoes. That's it. So we've gotten fish, mangoes. They have this really cool dessert that they make in Xiaoliuqiu. That's sort of sweet. People brought me the sweet dessert.
It's pickled green mangoes and they freeze them.
And they're so tasty.
Yeah, so it's kind of an acquired taste. It's not something I like to eat a lot of, but
I love it.
It's
I love it.
A little bit.
Well, that's the difference between me and Evie. It's something that I could eat every day. But all this just to say is people are wonderful here and we're blessed. And Jesus is blessed because he's giving us strength to persevere rather than say it's too hard and I want to give up. I confess, I've had a week where there's been many times where I said, this is too hard. I just can't deal with it anymore.
Well, we did get to go to the local Taiwanese Presbyterian Church and help with their music. And that's been really fun. I hardly know any Taiwanese. Tim knows a little more than I do, but the people are very friendly. So we studied more Mandarin, but everybody here speaks Taiwanese.
So I conducted a choir singing Taiwanese on Sunday.
There's a phonetic system we can follow for singing, but
Wow. Interesting.
yeah, well, local people will come up to me and start chatting. The church people just chat away in Taiwanese and have to explain. And I got to speak Mandarin. I don't know Taiwanese. Sorry. So
yeah, we're in a completely different language group. It's so hard.
He plays piano, right? See the piano
Yeah.
player?
Yeah.
Awesome.
And Tim conducted the choir. So that was fun. And
It
the
was
people are
fun.
appreciative. They don't have like a full-time music director and pianist. So they just, another friend of ours plays for them a lot. And then anybody in the congregation, even if they're just a beginner on the piano, they'll play the hymns on a Sunday. So they appreciate everybody that helps.
Well, you know the essential language, you know music, and that makes all the difference for them.
Yeah,
Yep.
they sing with great, sing very joyfully and with great meaning and commitment. They don't just go through the motions of singing. They're
Wow.
really worshiping. So it's a very nice, warm church.
But it's like guys in the 70s, guys in their late 60s and 70s leading worship, singing like with absolute gusto. And I'm
Yeah.
like, they had 3 old guys leading the music at the beginning of the service.
Yeah, that was
I'm like,
the team of the week. They have different teams. I think they have
But-
at least 3 teams.
it was
Yeah.
unbelievable.
And the one guy said he was healed of cancer.
Wow. Phew.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a great experience of being reminded that Jesus means a lot to people and he's done a lot to help people and he's there to do a lot to help us. So I think I want to end with this, guys, that and then we'll share prayer requests, but Jesus is there to help us when it's hard. That's the point. Jesus is there to help you when it's hard. Keep focused on him. And that's the secret to the successful Christian life. And we sometimes forget that. You hear a lot about other things, but we need to hear more about Jesus. Keep our eyes on him. Okay?
Wow.
I'm going to turn the
Okay.